What's up again, everybody? I want to talk about an errata that was posted to the WizKids Rules Forum on Monday, January 20th. This errata affects two different cards, and really it affects the global that's printed on both cards. This card is found in the new Waterdeep campaign box, and this is the Intellect Devourer global. It's found on both Brain-Eating Monster and Deadly Puppet Master, and the original global text just said global. Once during your turn, you may spin and one of your NPC dice to an energy face. Move it to your reserve pool. Now, outside of the extraneous word "an" in there, the wording on this card is still very general, meaning it could lend itself towards a few different outcomes with what it actually does. At first glance, you might think, well, this is just sort of a functional reprint of the energy fixers that we originally saw in the Green Arrow and Flash sets, and then made an appearance again in the Thor sets. But the wording here is different, and because it's so different and amorphous, it led to a wide variety of interpretations about what this card actually does. So those original energy fixers essentially allowed you to take a sidekick that was in your field zone and then spin it down onto whatever energy the global said that you could spin it to, whatever energy type, be it bolt, mask, fist, shield. But because the Intellect Devourer global was worded differently and also in a very general sort of sparse way, you could actually interpret the global to have effects in ways that we've never seen before. Like, for example, once during your turn, you may spin one of your NPC dice to an energy face, even if it's already on an energy face, rather than being on that sidekick character die face, which is what the original energy fixers needed, essentially allowing you to spin a sidekick die that was on a mask to a bolt, or a fist to a shield, or a question mark to, I don't know, anything else. Some people were even reading out that parenthetical text, the move it to your reserve pool portion, and trying to see if you could essentially get away with taking a die out of your used pile that was a sidekick and then putting it onto an energy type in your reserve pool. And so because of all these questions and varying degrees of belief or thought on how the global actually was meant to work, I'm really glad to see that WizKids hopped on the rules forum and gave us an errata for the card, which now says, global, pay 0. Once during your turn, you may spin one of your active NPC character dice to an energy face. Move it to your reserve pool. So now we have an extremely clear wording on this global. A couple of things they changed. First, they added the pay 0, and that's important because without that pay 0, you're technically not having to pay anything. You're not having to pay a cost to use this effect. And if you don't have to pay a cost to use an effect, then that cost can't be changed, can't be raised or lowered. So including the pay 0 portion was extremely important, and I'm glad they put that back on there. The next new portion of this text is the word active. The inclusion of that word active changes things a lot. In fact, it even makes it a little bit different from how the old energy fixers used to work. So now with this wording of active NPC character dice, you know that the die that you're affecting with this global has to be on its pawn face. And you know that because it's active. And you can't just have a single energy die sitting in the field zone, right? It has to move to the reserve pool, hence why the parenthetical text there says to move it to the reserve pool, thus clearing up the confusion of the previous wording that was printed on the card. So now how does this global work? Well, you pay 0, so that's the cost. If that is raised by your opponent, then you pay whatever it's raised to. But once during your turn, you can take one of your active NPC character dice, that's sidekicks, and also allies technically, and you can take it from the field zone, put it in your reserve pool, and spin it to an energy face. And again, this is not a carbon copy reprint of those old energy fixers, even after they errated it here. In those previous iterations of this sort of ability, those NPC character dice or those sidekick character dice did not have to be active in the field in order to spin them to one of their energy sides. That meant that you would be able to activate those global abilities with that character in your reserve pool, avoiding any possible taxing that you might have to pay to field a sidekick. You don't have to worry about that because it's sitting in your reserve the whole time. You just spin it onto whatever side you want. This global, however, requires you to have that character that you want to affect in the field zone. So if your opponent is running something that is making your sidekicks more to field, then you're actually going to have to field a sidekick paying that cost to spin this down, rather than just doing it in your reserve pool. But that downside does come with an upside, because this ability allows you to spin it to any energy face, not just one specific energy face. And that includes the question mark. You can now spin a sidekick character die to a question mark, allowing you to access any different energy type that you might need. It also allows you to take an ally, which is a sidekick in the field zone, because that's what the keyword says. You can spin that ally out of the field zone and onto an energy face, and that includes the double energy face sides that come on character dice. So that 2-cost ally Wong can be spun down onto his double fist side, which is really cool. So as you can see, this is not the same type of ability that we had on previous energy fixers. This is sort of a ramped up one with a slight downside that those characters have to be in the field when they spin down. All in all, I really like that they went ahead and errataed this card. I think it's a lot clearer. I'm glad that it is fixed now. I wish it were fixed before the release itself. It would be nice if the card said what it was intended to say or what it says now, but the fact that we actually know how the effect works and that it's actually a really cool effect has me excited to mess around with it more. In general, this is a very powerful ability and one that you really want to decide whether or not you want to put on your team, because again, if you're bringing a card on your 10-card team that your opponent can take equal advantage of, then you're technically giving them more of an advantage, because you're spending one of your card slots for this effect, and if they can take equal advantage of it, then you're giving them essentially that 11th card that you're using on your team. So that's a dangerous thing. You really want to decide whether or not this is powerful enough and you can take more advantage of it versus your opponent, because anytime you provide them a global, you really have to decide whether or not it's doing you just as much good or more good. And if it's not, you probably don't want to bring it. This is a topic that I talked a little bit about in that new combo video where we spoiled one of the WWE cards. We decided between using different globals on the team simply because we could make more use of them than our opponent. And that's really important when you're team building, deciding whether or not you're actually going to make more use out of this effect compared to your opponent, and whether or not it's worth the card slot for that reason as well. So what do you think about this errata? Do you like the change that they made? Are you glad that they were a little bit more clear in their intention and focus on the card effect itself? What other cards would you like to see them errata or make changes to? If you like this video, if you like the content on this channel, feel free to give me a like and a subscribe. It supports the channel. Also, if you're interested, you can check out things like the Discord that I set up or the Patreon that I have going. I've already had several people reach out to me and choose to become one of my patrons, and the fact that they're choosing to invest in me and in this channel makes me so thankful that this community is so amazing. So if you're interested in that, check out the links below the video in the video description. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.